Welcome to Devlog number 3, the No Pain, No Gain edition. And what I mean by that is that I got everything done I wanted to get done over the last 2 weeks, but I definitely did not have fun doing it because multiplayer sucks, and we're going to talk about why it sucks in depth in a minute. But in the meantime, you're probably going to notice that there's a main menu now, which is nice because it makes it look like a real video game for once. And the background, if you look really close, you can kind of see that the different elements are drifting around, and when you move the mouse, it creates this really cool diorama effect, which I think makes the menu look a lot more dynamic and interesting than just a flat picture. So, and the background is chosen randomly. There's a set of 2 right now. I'm hoping there's going to be more eventually, but it changes whenever you change screens. So we can go to the fleet editor, but we're not going to because there's nothing that's really changed except for a couple UI fixes. But so Skirmish is our single player game. And one of the really hard things that caused a lot of the pain over the last 2 weeks was making sure that the system that manages the Skirmish game was capable of doing both single player and multiplayer with no difference between them. So the lobby that you're seeing here is exactly the same as what you're going to see in the multiplayer lobby in a second. So here we can add CPU players that we want to face off against. We can team them up against me. We can pick what fleets they're using. The color is eventually going to be the ability to set the base color and the stripe color on the ships, kind of like Homeworld used to be, or still is. So if we go back out to multiplayer, I'm going to host a game on my other screen real quick, and then we can refresh. I don't know why there are 2 pop-ups sometimes, but so this uses Steam's lobby system. I'm using the Steam API. I've had a Steam app ID for years, and I'm finally making use of it. And so this uses Steam's lobby system to broadcast that this game is available, and so I can join in on it. I can, on my other screen, I'm going to change the fleet that I'm using, and you see it updates here. I can change my team and stuff, same as over in single player. I can ready up. And then when I ready and start the game on the server, or on the host, it'll kick us both into the game. So now we are in the game proper, and this is the same Skirmish map that we saw a couple weeks ago. Obvious difference being that it's all now networked. So what happened a second ago during the loading screen was a bunch of data exchange and synchronization. And so the fleets, the real issue that I had to overcome was that the fleets are all dynamic. So all of these things that are on the ships, the hulls themselves, they're all, there's no like pre-built unit that I can just spawn. And so when it comes to Unity, a really nice thing about Unity is that it makes things really easy, right? You don't have to write your own game engine, and you can do a bunch of stuff automatically for you. All the graphics are already there. But so when it comes to adding multiplayer to your game, in a lot of cases you can really just flip a switch. And you make a couple changes to your scripts and components and stuff, but for the most part, you really just flip a switch. But when it comes to a game where a lot of things are done dynamically, like putting these modules on these ships, there needs to be a lot more of setup. And so what happens is all the fleets that the players produce on their computers, that has to get transferred up to the server and then distributed out to all the clients. So at the start, the host will collect an XML file from every single client, which contains the data on their fleet. So these 4 ships here, these 2 ships over here, and then it will distribute those out to the clients. And then it will spawn the base of all the ships, which is just an empty game object with a couple scripts on it. And then when the clients receive those XML files, they'll spawn in all the hulls and the components and things like that in order to get the ships actually populated. Now, the real pain is that there's a bunch of things that need to remain consistent across all of the ships. So things like sensor context identifiers, that one in particular caused me a lot of bugs. But now everything's working, so I can see that I have the tracks for all these things that the ships are tracking. And so all of this is authoritative on the host on my other screen. So the host is doing all the acquisition for the targets. It's pushing that out to the client, so that you can't cheat, you can't pretend to track something that you're not. The host will always know. And then the updates are done locally because there's so many updates per second, right? Every time this jumps around, that means that the sensor is doing a sweep. And so once I got all that initialization stuff done, really the rest of it was just getting each individual piece serialized, sent to the host, and then replicated out to the clients, which wasn't that bad. So now I can do movement orders, so I can have this guy form up here, and they'll move over. One thing you might notice is that see that jitter that's going on? That's because I haven't done any rigid body physics synchronization. So this is happening on the client. It's also happening on the host, and the transform position is being synced over to the client. And so it kind of causes this little fighting effect, but that's a project for another time to get things to be nice and smooth, which I will hopefully get to soon. So, and then I can issue that order also. Turret orders, or weapon orders in general, on the other hand, they are executed only on the host. So the host will receive this shoot at a target order. It will issue that order to the ship, and then the thing that actually gets replicated to the clients is the turret will be facing in this direction. The turret will fire now, rather than executing it individually on all the clients, because that would create the same kind of fighting effect that we're seeing with the movement, and there's no reason for that when it's just a simple shoot order. But the thing that I'm really proud of that I got synchronized was that the missiles look just as cool as they did when I was doing this purely single player. So they will pop out, they'll flip over, they'll turn to the target, and they'll light their engine, which looks really awesome. And I'm impressed that I got that to work in as short amount of time as I did, so that was a real relief to me. And then, so there's not really much else to show in terms of things that have been done. Pretty much 95% of the stuff that I did the last 2 weeks is all under the hood. None of the actual gameplay features have changed or anything. This is all what you've seen before. The obvious difference, though, is that the ships no longer look like crap. And the reason for that is that I had some time at the end of the sprint, so I figured after having my head buried in multiplayer code for the last 2 weeks, I needed to do something a little relaxing, a little more artistic. And so I decided I was going to make the ships look better. So that comes from when I showed my dad my devlog. His first reaction was, wow, that's really cool, but how come the ships don't look as nice as they usually do when you make them? So here you go, Dad. I hope this makes you happy. I hope they look better. I did the textures in Substance Painter, this is my first time using that program, and I think it turned out pretty well for my first time ever using this program. I did all the modeling in Lightwave, which I've been using for like 10 years. But I think I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. When I came up with the original frigate model, I really just glued 5 boxes together just to have something to look at that wasn't a single box. But I kind of liked the way the silhouette turned out, and so I decided to kind of roll with it and make an actual ship model out of it, and I like it. So that's pretty much where I am now. Where are we going next from here? Well, after the pain of the last 2 weeks, I'm really excited to get back to doing something that's fun and cool rather than multiplayer synchronization. And so what I'm thinking I'm going to do, I really like the way this ship is kind of like drifting around while it maintains formation. Anyway, so what I think I'm going to do next is get into the actual effects on the ship, like how do we damage modules, how do the stats on the ships work, how does the crew work, that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm going to do next. It's going to require me to get collisions actually working, which they're not right now, but I think that it will drive me much closer to having a game that can be played rather than just, you move some things around and you tell things to shoot, but it doesn't actually have an effect. So that's my update, and thanks for watching.